Welcome to Lewis Spotlight. My name is SuzanneAkhrasSahloul, and I would now like to share with you my story. Well, we started the Syrian Community Network early in 2015, knowing that Syrian refugees will be coming to resettle in Chicago. Prior to that, I was with another organization, and I had heard that through the State Department that there will be refugees resettled due to the ongoing conflict and crisis in Syria. So Chicago is a home to many refugees from all over the world. You have the Congolese refugees, Iraqi refugees, Burmese, you have Vietnamese refugees, and we have very vibrant communities here in Chicago. And we're immigrant friendly, so I thought, this is our opportunity to serve our fellow mankind as they come through the State Department, through the UNHCR, and they will come looking and seeking a community to support them and to welcome them, and I thought this would be a perfect chance for us to serve. I used to volunteer with the Syrian American Medical Society, SAMS. My husband has been involved with the organization since 2002. I became involved with SAMS in 2004 when I started the auxiliary, which is like the assisting hand to the Board of Representatives, and the auxiliary turned into the foundation. And so I was focused mainly on fundraising for the organization. We would plan events, we would plan brunches and auctions and picnics and all kinds of fun things for families to do here in Chicago and in Syria. And the purpose of those events would be mainly to fundraise and to support NGOs that were in Syria that were doing great work on the ground, whether it was supporting a blind school or a deaf and blind school, or supporting a school for Down syndrome children. So we would fundraise and then choose a project for those schools and donate towards that project. And that was our way of giving back to our country and making an impact for those who really need it the most. Inspired by the Arab Spring, we know in early 2011, many young people took to the streets and started chanting, freedom, freedom, we want opportunities, we want jobs. It was a nonviolent movement. It started in Tunis, it started in Egypt, it spread into Yemen, then into Syria. But unfortunately, in Syria's chapter of this Arab Spring turned into a long winter. And as you can see from the news and what happened, many people were affected. In Syria, what started out as the Arab Spring, a nonviolent movement, turned into an armed movement, unfortunately. And as a result, this crisis has gone on for now 6 years. People were internally displaced in Syria due to the shelling of the regime, and they started to move around from neighborhood to neighborhood until eventually they made it out into a safe area or to a neighboring country. In Jordan, Lebanon, and in Turkey, you see large numbers of refugees, Syrian refugees there, because they had no choice. They were not safe. They were being shelled all the time. And many civilians paid the heavy price of what was happening in Syria. So as a result, you have now the refugee crisis. But last year, really, when we started to see people crossing the Mediterranean Sea and going from Turkey into Greece, that's when really the world started paying attention. When we saw the pictures of Aylan Kurdi washed up on the Turkish shore, we knew that this is the time when our humanity has failed the Syrian people, that we as an international community did not step up and do all that we can to end the crisis. As a result, you have thousands of children who drowned in the Mediterranean and thousands of people who are displaced, and now millions. We currently have 5 million people registered with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR, 5 million Syrian refugees. Worldwide, we have over 60 million refugees, but 5 million is a huge number in just a short period of time of 5 years or 6 years. In addition, there are many people who are internally displaced in Syria, and there are those who are unregistered refugees who live in neighboring countries, but for whatever reason, they don't register. So you have half of the population of Syria displaced since 2011. It's very difficult to see this happening to anyone, whether they're Syrian. Just because I'm Syrian American, of course, I'm affected the most because it's my country of origin. It's where my father was born. It's where I was born. I was born in Syria in 1972. My father actually came to Chicago to study engineering, and he met my mother here in Chicago, and then they moved back, and that's why I was born there, and I enjoyed living there. I loved the time that we were there. We had a carefree childhood. But then when we decided to come back here, we still, any immigrant who leaves their country of origin and goes to live somewhere else, their heart always belongs to that country, their country of origin, no matter what, whether there's conflict or not. It's very difficult to see that happening in Syria. That's because that's where I'm from. I have extended family. My husband's family is all living there. And in addition, as a human, when we see what's happening in Syria, we should really be affected by it, because it's if we allow injustice to happen, anywhere in the world, it means that there's something wrong with us. The fact that the international community has not stepped in to stop what's happening is really a shame on all of the world powers that are able to do something to stop the flow of refugees. One of my biggest challenges starting the Syrian Community Network was having community buy-in early on, because when I was speaking about refugees coming to Chicago, there weren't any refugees that were there in Chicago, and the community was disconnected from the refugee world itself. Even though there were Iraqi refugees, Somali refugees, there were Ethiopian refugees from all over the world in our city, but it seemed like our community, the Syrian American community, was not really connected to what was happening in Chicago. And so early on, it was just hard, to convince people, and people, wanted to see, okay, they're coming to Chicago, but we haven't seen any families come yet. So in that sense, it was a little bit hard because it was still very abstract, and people were not seeing the results of what I was talking about. So it was kind of a hard sell. But there were a few people who believed in what I was saying, and those became the Syrian Community Network board members. And our board members were very quick to recognize that yes, there will be refugees coming, and we need to be organized. And that was the best thing. And that's why our board members are very unique in the Syrian Community Network. They're all the founding members. Yes, I'm the original founder. Yes, I'm the one who rallied people and got people. But they're also at the heart of all of the work that we do. And I just want to make sure to tell everyone that the Syrian Community Network board members are the heart and soul of this organization, and they helped rally and mobilize people and to engage their own networks. And they believed in the idea right away. For others, they said no, but for the board members, they were quick to act, and I appreciate their leadership so much. So far, right now, one of my most memorable moments with the Syrian Community Network are the families. It's working with refugees is not easy. It's always a challenge. You're giving a lot of yourself. There's a lot of high emotions involved. At any given moment, someone will call you and they're in crisis mode, and you have to act quickly. Whether it's they can't pay their rent, or whether their food stamps application, was taken away, and you have to reapply for them, and you have to help them, or whether they have an injury. There are many who have come to Chicago who have pre-existing conditions, either cancer, or they were injured in Syria due to the crisis. So you have to help those families are more vulnerable, and you have to always step up and help them a little bit more. We just recently had a baby that just passed away. A mother came here a month ago, and she had a complicated pregnancy, and in fact, after they did all of the MRI and all of the echoes and the scans, it turned out really for real that the baby had a heart condition. So when she had the baby at Northwestern Hospital, the idea was that the baby will go into neonatal care immediately, but unfortunately within less than 24 hours the baby died. And so again, it's that high emotion, and that you don't know how to deal with it at times. And it comes at a time where you have to also take care of yourself, and self-care is very important to be able to help others. So you're always dealing with balancing your family, balancing yourself, your mental health, and then having to step up in times of situations of crisis. Luckily, we have amazing staff at Syrian Community Network who have all stepped up, and all are caring for this mother, and all are able and ready, willing, and able to assist the families as much as we can. I may not be doing it, but my staff certainly is doing it, and they're amazing. What I would say to people who are fearing Syrian refugees, I would say you have nothing to fear. These are people who are just like you and me. They're coming to looking for a new life. Anyone who came from an immigrant background, why did our grandparents choose to come to the U.S., to the United States of America? Whether it was at the height of the immigration movement in the late 19th century, early 20th century, or in the 60s, or whether in the 70s, or many people came here either to escape persecution or for opportunities for their children. Certainly, if you look back into your own history, you will find a history of a story that you have, that either your grandparents or your great-grandparents immigrated to this country looking for something. And that something could be safety, could be security, could be just peace of mind, it could be education, it could be so many other factors. But these refugees who are here, and any refugee who comes to the United States, whether they're Syrian or not, they're looking for safety and security. And they're looking for a future for their children, because certainly what's happening in Syria is no place for a child to grow up. If you follow any of the live tweets from Aleppo, I encourage everyone to look at #StandWithAleppo. These are live footage of the things that people are enduring right now in Aleppo while they're under bombardment. Regular people just like you and I. Hospitals, schools, markets, anything you can think of that where you and I would go and conduct our daily business has been targeted and bombed. So for an average person to think, okay, I don't have a hospital to go to if I'm sick, I don't have my school anymore, I can't go to the market to buy my food, that means I need to move somewhere else, I need to move to another neighborhood. So that family ends up moving to another neighborhood in a city or another city, so they're now internally displaced. So they are kind of a refugee. And then until they finally make the decision to move out of Syria and into a host country. And so now they're official refugees and they register with the UN. And so people who have the opportunity to resettle, whether it's in the US or into Canada or into any European country that will have them, are looking for safety, security, opportunities for their children. Parents might feel like, okay, for me, it might be too late, especially if parents are a little bit maybe an older demographic, an older, if they're maybe in their 40s or 50s, but they're thinking about their teenage children. What opportunities and future do they have? So this is very important to keep in mind. They're escaping terror. They're not here to inflict terror. They are looking for people to become their friends and to welcome them into the community. And I'm so happy that Chicago, our city I'm so proud of our city, really, that has stepped up and really welcomed and championed the idea of refugees welcome. Just last week I met with the mayor's office, and they're looking to put together initiatives to how to make our city the most welcoming city in the U.S. Well, some of the difficulties that families face, of course, the language, this is number one, feeling strange in a new land. It's not easy to come and imagine yourself, you have to now learn a new language, a new culture, a new learning style. You go into school and your children are a little bit lost, they feel lost. I remember myself as a child when I came here at the age of 10. I remember feeling really overwhelmed when I walked into school. I wanted to just, I wished the earth would just open up and swallow me. That's how difficult it was. Everybody was looking at me. I felt so strange. I was 10, but you can imagine for a teenager, it's awkward to be a teenager. Imagine somebody who's 15, 16 years old. It's awkward anyway. And then on top of it, to be a refugee and to have to learn a new language and a new culture. One of the things that was really difficult for me was group work. When they tell us, get into groups. Oh, that was so scary, because in Syria we're not used to working in groups. Or give us your opinion. Why do you want my opinion for? I don't need to share my opinion. So those were difficult challenges that I had to overcome because the learning style was different. Children, when they first come in, especially if they're a little bit older, will have to deal with those difficulties. Younger children will have an easier time adapting, because when you're young, it's easy, and language, you pick up language so much faster, and children don't know the difference sometimes, between, this person or that person, or the types of clothes that you're wearing, and so it's a little bit easier to integrate. But those are, difficulties that, children have, and then you can imagine for an adult who has to get a job, learn language, adapt to the culture, be able to be there, especially for some of the men and some of the women too. They are the breadwinners. Some of the women are the breadwinners. Their husband may have an injury, and now it's on the mom to be to help her children with homework, to go out and earn very it's a low-paying job, and to have to pay rent and take care of their, injured husband. It's very difficult on the family. So as much as we can to help ease that transition, that first year, we help with rent assistance. We help them by bringing them mentors. Mentors are volunteers who come in once a week into their homes. We train them, and then we connect them to the family, and then the volunteer or the mentor will help in English, will help the children with homework, will help read the mail. Reading the mail for all of us is overwhelming. You get a stack of mail like this, half of it goes to the garbage, the other half you don't know what it is. It's credit card advertisements. But for the family who doesn't know how to read English, when you get a huge letter of many words on it, it looks very daunting and overwhelming, where for us it might take us 1 second and know it's an advertisement, you rip it up and throw it in the garbage. But for them, it's very scary. What's happening right now in Syria is that there is a targeted targeted campaign to make people become refugees. So the regime has, with the help of the Russian Air Force, drops bombs and barrel bombs on hospitals and schools and marketplaces. And so when you have your local hospital or your local school where your children go to no longer in existence and it has been bombed, it means that you're going to be moving, you're going to be internally displaced and leaving your home. One of the things that my husband, who volunteers with the Syrian American Medical Society, SAMS, they do a lot of the field hospitals that are in Syria, and so he has been a witness to what has been happening. A few of the hospitals that are built by SAMS they're underground hospitals, field hospitals, have been targeted by regime forces and have been completely destroyed. So that leaves people more vulnerable without the ability to seek health care. And so they end up leaving and moving. Well, the elections this year have been very interesting, to say the least. It's embarrassing also, especially now with all of the new revelations that have been coming out about each candidate. But in particularly, Hillary Clinton, I would say, has been very supportive of refugee resettlement, and she was quoted as saying that she wants to bring in at least 65,000 refugees if she's elected president. In the United States, we only have 12,000 refugees. So that number is very small in comparison to the scope of the problem, especially when you look at Germany and Sweden and the other Western European countries. They've taken on more refugees. Those countries had no choice but to take them because they were there at their door. Versus in the United States, the refugees go through a vetting process, a very strict vetting process, where they're asked at by multiple entities from the U.S. government about why they left Syria, how they became refugees, what's the process that they came through, what are they doing in their host countries. Speaking on my own personal behalf, I would, of course, like to see the U.S. take more of a leadership role in ending the crisis. Only the U.S. has the ability to do that. Only the U.S. can rally NATO forces and set up safe corridors for people, safe zones, so that Syrian airplanes and Russian warplanes will not be bombing hospitals and schools. So I came to Lewis University when I was looking for a program to do my master's degree. And as an undergrad, I had looked into Lewis. This was back in the early 90s, back in the day, and I was interested in Lewis University, but I did not think, at that time it was a right fit. But certainly when I was looking for a graduate program, and I saw the one program was the organizational leadership program, and this is something that I've always been interested in, is nonprofit leadership. I remember in our orientation, one of the professors was talking about the Lassallean. What does the Lassallean tradition mean? where he spoke of the early founders of this movement, how they believed in social justice and wanted to have access to education for everyone. And this was in France at that time. And that really inspired me and looking at this model of social justice and equality for all. And that's one of the reasons why I was really attracted to Lewis University, and I wanted to be here so that I can continue my graduate studies. And I never regretted the decision. When I was at Lewis, I really enjoyed being here because we had flexible learning hours. We had courses we could take on the weekend. We had courses that we could take at night. And for someone who's busy, who is a mom of 3, at that time my children lived at home, and I knew that I couldn't be doing certain things during the daytime. And so this flexibility allowed me the opportunity to finish my degree. What was more valuable was the instruction from the professors. The professors were people who actually not just talk the talk, but they actually walk the talk. They believed in the mission of the university. They had experience in the work in the field that they were teaching. And so I felt like they were bringing a lot of hands-on experience for us as students. And we as students had the opportunity to share in what we were doing, and we were able to apply what we were learning in our daily work. I felt like whatever I learned here, I was able to apply at SAMS. I was born in Syria. I had a carefree childhood because, when you're a child, you're not responsible for anything, and your parents are the ones who are responsible for everything. But at that time, when we were in Syria, things were peaceful. We enjoyed a good life. My father was an engineer. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she used to teach English as a translator because my mom is Canadian, and so she would go to the local high school and teach an English class. So at least she got the opportunity to interact with people, and then at the same time we knew coming home that we would find our mom to be home, which is comforting for a child. The last 2 years in Syria, I would say, were a little bit difficult. We knew that there was something going on. At that time was the first uprising in Syria, because when you live in a dictatorship, you have to expect that there's going to be an uprising every few years because there's so much that people can handle. Being repressed and it's difficult, and there's corruption and there's inflation and things are not fair. The last 2 years between 1980 and 1982 were a little bit difficult, where I remember my dad telling us, stop going out, don't go here, don't go there, don't speak of this, the walls have ears, don't talk about the president, things like that. So we could tell that there was something different in Syria. And then my mother decided she wanted to come to visit her family in 1982, and then we came to the U.S. and then my mother decided that she's not going back. That she didn't see a future for us anymore, and she wanted to remain in the U.S. My experience coming to the U.S. Has helped me in a way, I think, to help the children who are coming in. Because I understand the challenges that they're facing at school. So many times, when I meet some of the new children, I see myself in them. I see, when some of the kids have this kind of glassy-eyed look, or they feel disconnected, or they look like they're in shock. I remember those feelings. I have 2 older sisters, and we always joke that we never got over moving because it was really difficult, and they were older than me. My oldest sister was 16, my other sister was 12, I was 10. So they had a much more difficult time than I did. I remember the challenges at school, feeling completely lost in a lesson. You're sitting in class, math or history or science. Math was easy because math is the same. And so that was the easiest subject. But then sitting through science and sitting through social studies, and it was completely foreign to me. It was very difficult. You feel like you're lost, and then your mind starts to wander, and then those gaps become even bigger and bigger. So early on, the school assigned a tutor for me to help me with social studies and history, because I was falling behind in everything. But spelling and math was easy. Because in Syria, the learning style is that you do a lot of memorization, versus here in the US, the educational system relies on critical thinking. and giving your opinion and giving your feedback, and that's completely different than in Syria. So bridging the two is kind of hard. So when I see the kids lost, I understand. And that's kind of what inspired us to start our mentorship program, because we know that if those children have mentors and they have someone who can help them one-on-one, that will make a difference for their education. My greatest life lesson, and I would tell this to everyone, is to follow your dreams. If you have an idea of how you can help people and support people, by all means, please do it, because you're the only one that will care enough about your passion, and you'll be the one who will make sure that it comes alive. So many times people will ask me, well, why did you start the Syrian Community Network? And I said, because I remember the feelings when I first came to the US. Yes, I was not a refugee, I was an immigrant, but some of the challenges are very similar. And I believe that we have to do all we can to welcome people and support them. I remember feeling, isolated and lonely early on, and I don't want any child to feel that way. And so my dream was to start this organization. My dream was to build the organization so that it's an effective organization, and God willing it will happen, but it's going to take a lot of work. And so follow your dreams and be persistent in and do what you feel is right. One of the most difficult life lessons that I've had to learn is that I can't always get my way. I have to work for what I want, which is a good thing, I guess. But sometimes wishing to have something or wanting something is not enough. You have to work and pursue what you really believe in until you get what you want. Syrian Community Network is expanding and growing by the help of the community. We have, right now, we're 6 employees. We have 2 full-time employees and 4 part-timers. So we're really excited about that, because only by hiring more people and more staff are we able to reach more people and serve more of the families. We have 7 board members, and so we're going to be expanding the number of board members as well. Most of our funding comes from the community. I would say 90% of it comes from the community, which is a great thing. And so they believe in the mission, and they believe in the work of Syrian Community Network, and which is the most important thing. The Syrian Community Network is not about me. It's not about any of the board members. It's not about the staff. It's the whole community coming together to serve these refugees. I could one day leave the organization, I don't know, but if I leave, the work must continue, no matter what. Please speak up. There are so many stories out there that are coming through the politician's mouth that saying that refugees are a danger to us, that we need to have better vetting process. Yes, we do need to have a better vetting process, but I'd like to ask people to get to know a refugee, connect with Syrian Community Network, become a mentor, become a volunteer, and go and visit families and tutor families, and then go out into your communities, into your churches, into your synagogues and your mosques and your community centers and park districts, and talk about your experience while you are visiting and helping this refugee child. And really, this is the only way to spread awareness. So many times we hear that the voices that are the loudest are the most negative voices, but it's time for the positive voices to come out. And whether it's through a blog, whether it's through a newspaper article, whether it's a talk at a church or a synagogue or a mosque, it's time for us to take the lead and have the loudest voice in championing the resettlement of refugees and welcoming of refugees into the community. Thank you for joining me on Lewis Spotlight. I hope that I have inspired you to take action and to become an advocate for a cause that you really believe in. Thank you.